I love it. Hello. Hello, journeyers. I'm Shannon Stott, and this is Improv on and off the topic. We're talking about commitment. Actually, we're talking about persistence. That is the month topic, and the entire topic for the year is community. I do not talk about this by myself. Emily Arnold always joins me because Emily Arnold is amazing.
Hi, I'm joining you.
Hi, Emily Arnold. You're amazing.
Thank you. You're also amazing. Welcome to Persistence Month, Part 2.
Part 2. Excellent. Let's jump into talking about it.
Let's do it. We broke down persistence into a couple different words when we initially talked about it, and today we want to dive into the related word of commitment in terms of persistence and how the actions that we commit to and persist with influence our community.
Yes.
So, you always start by asking wonderful questions, Shannon, so hit it off.
Okay, I have questions. You and I talk a ton. We always talk about the idea of change, right? Yes. Okay, so this idea of it's okay to be a person. It's okay to be who you are and have a set of values, and for those values to change over time or as you learn new information or different reasons for the change, and it's okay to change. When in the conversation of talking about commitment and community, I mean, I feel like this is an obvious answer, but let's get the obvious answer off the table first.
Yeah.
Is it okay for us to change our minds once we have committed to a community?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think part of life is that things are a little chaotic and nothing is immutable, right? Yeah. Like nothing necessarily has to stay the same.
Yeah.
Forever, right? I mean, I think that's when you're saying like committing to a community, we see that happen all the time in like micro ways, like friend groups and jobs, right? Or people who move across the country.
Yes.
You just because you've made that choice once doesn't necessarily mean it's still working for you now.
Right. I immediately am thinking about being part of the LGBTQIA plus community. I'm thinking about not being part of that community, right? Thinking of yourself as straight, and then realizing upon new information about yourself that you're not part of the straight community and you feel like you're part of the queer community, and how that must feel. I say must feel, but how it feels like, right? How it feels like you might be giving up or abandoning one community for the other. And the abandonment piece can feel really heavy. And I feel like there is a persistence. There's a talk in persistence right there, and how we persist to be ourselves, right?
Yeah, I think when we're thinking about persisting to be ourselves, I think that's more along the lines of like being in tune and true to ourselves and not just denying it. In terms of like sexuality or gender or any of these things that we have now, we know is a spectrum now. 20, 30 years ago, we were like, no, it is, you are straight or you are gay. That's it. And we know that it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. And being open to the fact that there are very few binaries in the world, one, and two, being open to yourself and recognizing that, like, oh, you know what, I don't fit on either, like 100% either way,
Right.
is important. And I know, yeah, that does kind of feel hard to like kind of change who you thought you were. But I like to see it more as like learning about yourself and persistence in terms of like, I want to get to know me and what is true, not I want to know who I was and stay
Right.
the same forever.
And say the same forever. When we talk about this exact thing, right? This
Yeah.
change, this persistence to be yourself, and the commitment to community, or rather the commitment to, yeah, the community that you're about to be in, or any commitment that you're committing to, and feel like you can change. When we're talking about improv and how we learn, how we learn to do those things, we are often talking about the hero's journey, right? And
Mhm,
especially
mhm.
long form, but definitely through even shorter scenes, we're talking about like where we see a character, where that character begins, how that character moves through the world, given their circumstances, given their environment. And then our friends, our team members, help to influence that character. They give the character choice, right? They set
Yeah.
choices in front of that character. If for some reason I'm thinking about Jack and the Beanstalk, I know.
Okay, yeah, yep. And you were telling the story of the beans and the whole thing. Yeah, mhm.
Right. But the idea, I mean, like the idea that Jack is part of a community, he's like a regular old person. He's moving through the world. His mom's like, basically, be a good child, and he's doing the thing. Don't have any adventures. And he's given the choice. He's given the choice to either stay the same, right? Go sell the cow so that the family can prosper, because that's what his mom wants, or trade the cow for these magic beans, right?
Uh-huh.
And now we're in this space where Jack is committing, or rather persisting, to commit to himself, right?
Mhm.
Like, well, who am I in this moment? Am I uh, uh, I uh, who do I belong to?
Yeah,
Am I the
in that story, it's a story of like a little bit of risk. Like he like because I uh you know, when we're thinking about persistence in terms of committing to like what's important to us. In that story, this kid's not just like, you know what's important to me, beans. He's like he's like, well, you know, if I sell this cow, we'll get some money just like usual. But maybe these beans, these guys have their magic, so maybe they'll make us even richer, and like this will help my family even more.
Mhm.
And so I think when we're thinking about persisting within ourselves,
Mhm.
that's one of those choices where we're like we kind of like do like a risk benefit analysis to the thing that's more important to us.
Right.
Um, yeah, so like is both of those things could help his what's important to him, like being there for his mom, but maybe one is riskier than another. Have you had any of those recently, Shannon, where where you've like had to take a risk for something you believe in or
Well,
had the choice to take a risk?
is that a real question, or is it a lead? Do you know of something that I've done?
No, I know it's a real question.
I'm
You
like,
asked me so many
what is
questions,
it?
I realize I ask so few.
Well, yeah, I mean, all the time, right? But like, the big one is working for myself, right?
Mhm.
Moving from having a literal corner office, like director on in the title and on the door, really making more money than I had made since like up until that point, all of the things, and then not feeling fully me, right? So we're talking about persisting to be yourself. And in that moment, or in that time period, I really didn't feel like I was persisting to be myself. I felt like I was persisting to be the daughter of my parents, who have a thought about who I am, a wife. What does a wife look like? We have a comment that says, how do you individually face feelings of doubt about persisting on a risky path? Right. Yes. So this is exactly what we're talking about in this in my personal story, right? Where the how do you face the feelings of doubt? Oh, it's very scary. And I
Yeah.
want to take that part of the conversation and turn it towards improv and how improv helps you to do that. Because Emily, this word that you brought up, risk, yes, abso-effing-lutely.
Yeah. Well, and what's cool about, and we say this a lot, that a lot of improv is practicing these life skills, right? We practice taking risks and jumping in when we don't necessarily know how things will go. Sometimes we can have like a better guess, or we can make a safer move, right? Like I know I do this thing well, so I'm going to do this thing, and it's safe, and it's still in line. It could still be in line with what's important to you as a performer, right? But maybe if something is important to me, like supporting my teammates on stage is important to me, right? So I could either do the safe choice of like doing something that I do well, right? If that's like coming in and like making musical improv, making up a song, or if looking at a scene, I think what could actually support them even better is something that might be a little riskier for me. So coming on as someone with an accent or doing something extremely physical, things that are not very high skills for me. I think of course, there's always going to be that little bit of doubt in there. In that instance, and what is good about improv is that we do a lot of trusting ourselves exercises and knowing that if it fails a little bit or a lot of it, the rest of your team is going to support you. And so, yeah, I think we do kind of make these, we kind of have to think about them as like risk benefit analyses especially in terms of the benefit, right?
Yes.
If this goes right, the benefit to my teammates will be like this. The benefit to the show will be this. Outside of life, like the benefit to my family will be this, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I love that. I love that talk about what is the benefit, and the part that I think that we're talking about that really resonates with me, and I feel like hits this question, is the practice of improv, right? When you're talking about how will this risk being more physical or doing an accent, how will this risk that I'm taking benefit my team? In the moment, that's a big thing. There's going to be a lot of doubt, but because we're doing improv on a regular basis, we are learning, we're taking risks on a regular basis, and the stakes are very low. And so this idea of how do you individually face feelings of doubt about persisting on a risky path, if you are practicing taking small risks before, like all the time, and those small risks I'm always like, get something different at a restaurant, like your favorite restaurant, and you always get whatever it is, like get something a little different. That's low risk, right? And if we can, I always go this way from work to home and vice versa, let's take another way. Or I always wear this thing when it's jeans Friday, I wear these particular jeans, or I always wear these colors, whatever it is. If you are consciously letting yourself know, okay, we're going to start taking small risks that are almost inconsequential. They are very low on the like hierarchy. I'm not going to lose my job. I'm not going to risk my children or my relationship or anything like that. When it comes to the time where it is time for you to face the feeling or persist on a risky path that you're just like, oh man, this is risky, then you have this like built up, what did you call that? You've built up some resilience. How about that? You've built up some resilience to taking a chance. And then we can clearly see, it's a little easier to see, what is the benefit here? And maybe we can easily sort of jump onto that spot. But, or no, there's no but. And Improv helps us practice that.
Yeah. And I think there's also a flip side to that too, in terms of like, you know, when you were talking about your old job in a cubicle, right? There's a whole flip side where it's like this work is hard, but then also recognizing that like it's not important to you, and yet you're still persisting, committing to it.
Mm.
I think there's also a lot of value in that too, being like, oh, I don't need to put myself in that hard spot because it's not important to me. It's not important to me. I don't, you know, I'm a cat person. Obviously, you see the tree, you see the jumping cat every now and then. I'm not going to be like, well, cool people have dogs, so I have to get a dog and like walk it every 2 hours and do that whole thing. No, it's not important to me. I don't need to do it. I'm not going to get a dog. And so I think both things are things that we need to evaluate. Is this a hard thing that we need to practice and commit to? Or is this something that's actually ultimately not important to me? And can I just do something else that is, even if that thing is riskier?
Yeah.
Recognizing that your other option is not helping you as a human being.
That's deep. Right? It is, because there are some risks that you're talking about, like the idea of getting a dog. And if we elevate that thing, you know, the idea of buying a house.
Yeah.
Right? The idea of having children. Those feel like, well, everyone's doing those things. I guess I should move from an apartment to a house. But if you and there's risk in there, and there, like, how much money and all those things. But what you're talking about is evaluating whether or not that house is actually important to you. It might be important to a whole bunch of your family, your friends, like, oh, you should buy a house. It might be important, but what is actually important to you? Is it travel? Maybe you need a mobile home, like, and a hitch on your car. But I love that idea, Emily, because on stage, oh man, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of going for the joke.
Yeah. Doing that little
Yeah.
hanging fruit, just making a pun, or just like not committing to your reality because it's just easier.
Right.
It's easier, you know, people will laugh.
Right.
Or
yes.
You could like live in that reality and wait for the right time for like those natural funny. Yes, I agree.
That's a really, that in that idea, when you don't go for the joke and you really are committing to the character or living in the idea, or the world that's being built, you really, I feel like persistence is such a beautiful word for that feeling, because you really are persisting to bring your team members along, not break the reality. Also bring your audience along for the ride, right? Your audience is committed to sitting and watching you build this world. And if you can sit and commit to the world, your benefit, or you're talking about benefits, your benefit in the end is going to be so much higher for everyone than it would have been if you decided to just release, right? It decided to go for the joke, or do what everyone else is doing, buy the house in this idea.
Yeah. You know what else I think is comparable as a real world example? It is wedding planning. Like, how many people out there have planned weddings and had like people tell you what you're supposed to do?
Yes.
Life is like a wedding where people give you their opinions all the time.
Yeah.
But really all that matters is what is important to you and your partner, right? Like,
yes.
And why are we going to spend thousands of dollars on flowers just because my Aunt Beverly thinks they're pretty when I don't care about flowers.
Right. It's I love that you brought that up. My sister is getting married, and she's wearing like white jeans and a white tee.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome.
It's going to be amazing. It really is going to be amazing. And I really admire her for not falling in to the societal, I won't call it a trap, but I will call it like there's an expectation, right? There's an expectation. And if that expectation is not something that you want to commit to, right? Mm-hmm. And like we always say, like you're always talking about, what is it? What are you valuing? And how are you persisting to continue or to uphold that value? So if if you value being frugal, or if you value going on a honeymoon, or whatever it is that you're valuing, if it's in opposition to having a giant wedding, there's a conundrum there. Like, well, everyone is expecting us to have a giant wedding, but I value going on a fun honeymoon. So how do I persist to be myself?
Yeah. Ooh. And there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of, going back to that question, there can be some doubt and like, will I regret the fact that I didn't do X, Y, Z for the wedding? But I think having that clear understanding, especially this is an instance where we have a micro community of you and your partner, right? Where you are doing what is best for the two of you. Yes. Not, which could be sometimes giving in to like your mother-in-law's ideas, right? It just might be, it might be like a break-even risk assessment to just let your mother-in-law choose the DJ or something, right? Like, but other things, I think you do need to weigh that doubt and kind of sit in that and recognize that, like, you know, maybe there is a chance, because we change as people, that I might be like, would have been nice to do that thing. But what's important is that you make the decision that matters to you and your partner and your micro community in that moment.
I want to use, you always drop beautiful words. Today, risk. Woo! Yes, beautiful word. And you just dropped regret. I think that's there, man, there's in the real world scenario of this wedding, when you said, you know, sometimes the idea of we may regret that choice. We might think I regret the choice, right?
Right.
If on stage, for me, that is comparable to the practice, right? If we have been practicing, in the habit of practicing the choices that are most aligned with who we're persisting to be, then in the moment we are more likely to make the choice that we will not regret, right? So that feeling of like, oh, I left that on the table, that joke, I left it on the table. Have you ever had that moment, Emily, where you're backstage and after a show, and let's say, like, I don't know, something was said on stage, like, you know, I love trees, and everyone on stage thought to say something like, well, you better leave me alone, some crap like that, whatever. But you're backstage and you're like, I was going to say, you better leave me alone. And everyone's like, I was going to say that too, but I didn't say it, right? And because there's this commitment, the community is committing to the reality. And so there's this like, am I going to regret saying, or rather not saying the joke? Am I going to regret that? If you and your community, especially I love that, the micro community, have been practicing, if you've been practicing what you value, then when you get to that spot, you're going to see that your community has your back. You're going to see that, yes, everyone thought low-hanging fruit, but because we're committing to the reality, like, we all elevate together.
Right. And then even when you're thinking like, oh, I could have said that, then if you think about like, well, what would have happened if I had said that? We would have strayed from blah, 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 and the things would not have gone the way that they did, which
Yes.
could have been a thing that you're already happy with. So like,
Yes.
I think that also helps. Like you think about, if you are thinking like if right now you're thinking about like a past regret, sometimes you're like, wow, my life would have been different if I had gone to like this school or like done something. But also your life would have been different.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, the consequences of those actions could have steered you away from what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I
And
think, yes.
one of the things that you're saying is that we'll just go always back to you. If you think back and you do end up regretting that thing, whatever it is, like maybe I should have gone to this school. The what is it? The point, I guess, isn't necessarily made like the school itself. Like I should have gone to that school. Oh, the school. The thing is to think about your own value, right? Like, what is it about going to that school or getting that degree that I value that I can still do now? I can
Yeah.
still change my community. I can still steer towards what I value
Mhm.
and and do the things and commit and persist to be who I want to be.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Just because you missed out on anything once doesn't mean like you still have a life ahead of you.
Right.
You still have things to do. Like you can still, it's never too late to do a thing and
Yeah.
join a thing and try something new or
Yeah.
something that you would like to try. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the community part, like I love this. You were talking about the wedding. When you you'll find that when you make choices that are more in line with yourself, you lift your community with you, right?
Yeah.
Because how many times have you heard wedding stories that are like, yeah, we did that thing for my parents or whoever you did it for, and nobody even remembers the thing? Like no one even cares
Yeah.
that you did that thing, and so like you feel diminished. But when you rise to yourself, when you're like, no, forget it, I'm sorry, mom, I love you so much, you can't pick the DJ this time, maybe for our 10th anniversary or whatever, you find that the people in the wedding, wow, the DJ you picked was so great. Like, oh, I was going to pick such and such. Nobody would have known. Like, we all love what you did,
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah, like so many people will say things like, that was so you.
yes, yes, yes,
That's so perfect for you
for
too.
you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we chose it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, exactly. Because we chose it. We chose it because that's important to it's important to us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Oh my gosh. We have 2 minutes and we don't do this often, but let's see if we can like recap really quick.
Okay.
Because I feel like we talked about a lot of beautiful things. Some of which were committing to, so we're talking about persistence. We're talking about persisting to be ourselves. What else did we talk about?
Mhm.
Persisting to be
Yeah,
ourselves.
persisting to be ourselves, especially in the face of risk,
Mm-hmm.
and making those choices that are low risk versus high risk,
Mm-hmm.
and really making those calculated decisions. We talked about the safe choice.
Yes.
The safe choice that's going to have like pretty what's the word that I want? Reliable consequences, or the riskier choice that you don't really know what's going to happen, but you're hoping that it's in service of the
Yes.
good thing. Um,
Yeah, the risk.
and
We talked about changing your community is
yes.
okay. Yes, right? If you're part of a community and you are persisting to be yourself, then that is what is the important part, not necessarily committing so strong to a community that you don't feel part of anymore. It's okay to switch focus. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
today was a good day.
Yeah, we did a lot of things.
We did a lot of things.
Thanks.
And if you want more things, if you want more things, join us every Monday. We're talking about this month. We're talking about persistence, how to cultivate it, and what it means on stage and off the stage. And we're also, the big overarching theme of the year is community, and how these, with persistence and trust and all the monthly themes, feed into community and how to build your community, how to build it and keep a nice, good, strong community that that supports you and you feel supported by on and
Off the stage.
Hey, we did it. We did it. Friends and family, it's time for us to go. See you next Monday.
Yeah. See you in a week, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.